development team, we welcome Her Excellency Dr. Salma Nims, the Secretary General of the Jordanian National Committee for Women. Welcome, Dr. Salma.
Thank you.
To start with, how can civil society be engaged in implementing the post-2015 development agenda at local, national, regional, and global level? How can it influence the decision-making process?
It's very important to first highlight that civil society now is recognized as a cornerstone for all successful democracies. You cannot have a successful democracy without having a proper representation of the voices of the civil society, which are representing all the grassroots in different parts of a nation and the world, of course, and also representing the subgroups within these societies. So it is important for those groups, the civil society organizations, to be involved in all parts and processes of planning and implementing as well, and monitoring the development processes at a national level. When it comes to the designing, of course, their participation in all planning processes are now being recognized as an important part of the planning process. Most of national plans are now inviting the civil society to contribute either as parts of the teams or by sending their own visions of how they see the development process should be going. That's at the national level. Also, they support us with giving the local vision of what's happening, because there are a lot of local variation, and we have to recognize the presence of the geographic disparities. And so different civil societies that are working in different localities can give us that input to be able to do the proper assessment of how to proceed. So that's in terms of designing. In implementation, we also have to realize that ministries alone and government organizations alone, we have recognized that partnerships are very important now in implementation of development processes. This means not only the public-private partnerships, but also the civil society and with the public and the private sector. And in this way, there are lots of initiatives that actually cannot be implemented except at a local level, which means that you need the community-based organizations, along with the civil society that is at the national level, working together to implement some parts of the development plans and processes that we include. And in the end, you know, we cannot, the concept of transparency and being able to make sure that everything is good governance, it cannot happen without having the society being able to be included in the monitoring process. So it's a vital role. It is, and any government now prides itself in with the more participation of the civil society in these processes.
Within your field of work, for example, how can civil society concretely engage in implementing the agenda? For example, citing the JNCW as an example, or any other practical examples?
First of all, the JNCW has the special status of being semi-governmental organization, which makes it partly a governmental organization at the same time a non-governmental organization. This might be makes things a bit complicated, but also opens great opportunities, because we are able to bring through our mechanisms and the networks that we have with the civil society, and we pride ourselves in building a very strong relation with the civil society, who we think are being able to raise awareness, build consensus around issues, which we then are able to take and advocate at the government level and also through the parliament. When it comes to, for example, changing legislations, when it comes to policy making, we have to work with the government. So to us, the voice of if we hold the voice of the civil society and the largest number of participatory and the participation of civil society organizations, the more we have, the more we represent of them, the stronger our voice and our ability to push and lobby for these changes. That's at one level. And also, any changes, and we have to realize that sometimes you need the society also to change its position. There are issues that are still facing resistance from within because of cultural reasons. And in this way, you need the local community-based organizations and the national civil society to support this process in order for change to be locally accepted, culturally sensitive, so it won't be imposed from above. Sorts of changes need to be happening from the bottom. And the most important thing is how, in order for these things to happen, is in building alliances around issues. We have to recognize that civil society, it's very difficult to have the same vision for everything. But it's very important to look for the where are the things that we share vision about. We share the vision. We share the we understand that we need to where we want to get to, and we could build alliances around issues. So an alliance could be made of 10 civil society organizations for one purpose, and then another alliance could be another 10 civil society. It depends on their objectives, their approaches. Then you find the strength of each civil society and you build the right alliance. Yet, we also have to have a more holistic, more inclusive civil society alliance. For example, like we have in the JNCW, which is called the Coordinating Committee, and which we try with them whenever we want to propose any change, any law, to propose any law. Sometimes they propose the changes of law, and we adopt it, and we help them implement it. Sometimes we could call for them to support us in developing new laws or new policies. So it's a give and take relation. So this is, I think, one of the ways that they can work on helping us and helping implementing the agenda. There are examples of cases of alliances that they work and they continue. Sometimes they have an objective and it takes time to achieve it. For example, last year when there were occurrences of violence within universities and social violences, the different groups of NGOs decided that it's time to start looking at the reasons and the underlying reasons behind it. And there was an alliance that was built called CAFA, for example, which meets and looks at how we can help look at the reasons and start putting strategies to support solving this problem, which is a really complicated one and needs to be solved multi-leveled. And that's why the civil society alone cannot work. We need to really, I think we all realize now that we all need each other to be able to make the change that we all aim for.
So, what good practices exist at the national, local and other levels? And what's the best way for existing good practices to be integrated into a global post-2015 Sustainable Development Goal framework?
First of all, it's very important now, and I think this is happening, is engaging in dialogue with the civil society as well as the governments, which are now going through processes of planning, because it's very important to align the agenda for post-2015 with the national plans and different national strategies. This way we will make sure that there is no contradiction and there's no duplication at the same time. By doing that, the different governmental and semi-governmental organizations should be able to also align their own plans with those, and this should be done with the support of the civil society. For example, also in our reporting, we need to be involving the civil society. A very good example that I'd like to talk about a sister organization, which is the Higher Population Council. They're writing their report for the ICPD, for the population and development conference in September. And they did it through a participatory, the reporting was done through a participatory manner. There was an alliance built with several civil society organizations which supported the reporting process to contribute to building the data and the reflection on the data and where to go next. And I think this is the best way to do it, because it strengthens the relation between the civil society and the government, and gives this way it gives a stronger, more solid base for any process of changes. In order for them to be endorsed, the more people are involved, the better they are. This is one of the examples that I think we should start also adopting in other, which we already do. For example, also when we do our, for example, our reporting on Beijing platform, we do the same. We also engage the civil society in contributing to the assessment of the situation and analysis of the reasons, underlying reasons, because it's not enough to just get the data. We need to realize what are the reasons behind the challenges we are facing and why we couldn't achieve certain objectives. And in order to be able to move forward, we need the civil society to help us analyze these situations because they are in the ground and they can see where there is issues. Of course, we need also the government and the organizations that are involved in the execution to also look at these issues.
Of course.
Yeah.